And a very good Monday evening. Hope you've dug yourself out by now. If you have, hey, put the shovel away for a while, kick back and relax, and enjoy the next 30 minutes as we discuss the St. John Flames snapping their 3-game winless slide before they head on the road. Thomas Construction Junior B's bite the bullet for the second straight year, and the Montreal Expos saga continues. Will they stay in La Belle Province, or will the moving vans be moving into the Big O and moving them out? We'll be discussing that and a whole lot more coming up right here on Time Out on TVNB. And a very good Monday evening. Welcome into Time Out here on TVNB. Jim Hennessy sitting alongside Bobby Allen and Bruce McDonald. Nice to have you boys.
Hey, Jimmy.
Yeah. Good to see that the shovel still works in the back of the trunk. You had a hard time getting here?
No. Did the shovel this morning early.
So how do you like the winter?
Well, Jim, we had our whole winter in one night here in the past 24 hours.
Pretty brutal.
I had to shovel my driveway 3 times, and now I have a luge run coming right down to the road.
Yeah, and the sad part is that most of the hockey tournaments that were wrapping up yesterday had to get canceled as well. So we'll wait and see if they get rescheduled or not, but let's get right to it. Of course, we start off with the St. John Flames, as per usual during hockey season here on the show. Flames with a good showing on Saturday night. 3-1, good crowd on hand, just over 5,000 at Harper Station. Tyler Moss, in my opinion, simply outstanding between the pipes. Nice to see him coming back into the fold. I don't know, I guess we'll start with you, Bob. Your feelings on the game?
Didn't get down, Jimmy, so I can't really comment on it. I was tied up Saturday night doing a high school game, so I can't really comment on it. It's a big win for them, but now they've got that, 7 games coming up in 10 nights?
Yeah. They've
got to go on that road trip and try to at least 4 or 5 wins out of that.
They got a busy schedule, no question about it. Bruce, what do you think?
That was a good game, Jim.
Yeah.
They disappointed me on Wednesday and Thursday night. They didn't put an effort into it, in my opinion. But on Saturday, they played hard, played good. Tyler Moss was outstanding. Eric Sharon played good on the fence. Wade Belak did his job. And St. Louis, once again, was outstanding at forward. And Bijan and Cowan and Varlamov all did a great job up front.
No question. It looks like everything seems to be coming together. And I had a few question marks, and I know I wasn't the only one walking around Harper Station Saturday night. Rick Vive, after Thursday's loss, was extremely critical of 3 players, of course, and we won't get into the names because he didn't mention them, so there's no point of us going through it. But we all know, if you watch the game or you follow the team, you know exactly who he was talking about. Said took extremely selfish penalties. The Flames were trying to kill penalties for 7 minutes, the final 7 minutes of that game Thursday night, and Rick Vive pulled no punches. He said that is the reason why we did not get the W in this game. Obviously it worked. It seemed to light a fire under the team. I had my doubts before the game got started. Barry and I were talking about it, Barry Johnston. We're saying that, you know, this could be a bad move. Paul Baxter tried this before in the past, and it didn't work for him, but obviously it did. So do you agree with a coach coming out? And I mean, there's no I in team. Obviously, hockey is always a team effort. Do you agree with the coach coming out, Bob, and pinpointing a couple of players and saying, that was a real bonehead move, and that's why we lost this game? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, I don't think any coach should come out and say it publicly. I think it should be all kept in the dressing room. You have your team meeting after the game or beforehand. The fans don't want to know that. They can see up in the stands what's going on and who's not producing anything. I think it should all be done off the ice inside the dressing room.
Okay. What do you think, Bruce?
I disagree totally. I mean, that's part of the coach's job, in my opinion. If you have a couple of fellows that are supposed to be your leaders, aren't doing their jobs, one of the two has really been, in my opinion, hasn't played good hockey all year. And the other fellow has. But once again, the coach has to make a point. They have to turn this thing around somehow.
Sure.
And it worked Saturday night. The guys worked hard. The guys that were in the lineup worked hard. I'd like to see if those 2 guys get back in the lineup on the road trip now. It should be interesting.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think a coach reaches, I mean, a coach is like a player. And I mean, Rick's been in the trenches before. He played before. And I mean, he played in one of the worst scenarios that you could possibly imagine under Harold Ballard in Toronto. And you know, I agree with Bruce to the fact where sometimes, I mean, if the team's not producing, I mean, you've tried everything in practice, you've made line changes, you've shifted that guy into this line, and so on and so forth. But I mean, it lit a fire under them. Now, the big test will be, of course, coming down the stretch. I believe they've got 20 games left. 7 of those are in hand over Portland and Fredericton to try to catch up in the Atlantic Division. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's a long, grueling schedule. There's no question about that. And with the weather that's been plaguing everybody around, I mean, they're going to have to travel on the bus quite a bit, I would imagine, to get back and forth as they start off the road trip. But it's going to be interesting to see whether or not this carries through, or whether Vive has to make another public statement or not. But I don't think he should have to. Obviously, Belak is coming into the fold. He was involved in the Theo Fleury trade. Yeah. I think he played an exceptional role on Saturday night. I think his presence alone out there on the ice gives the Flames what they used to have when Thompson was in the lineup. So I think he's a great addition. I think that he'll help them out coming down the stretch. And, of course, all eyes are on Tkachuk to see when his junior team gets knocked off, because when he does, obviously we get to pick him up. And, I mean, there's another player who can...
Rico Fata probably, too, eh?
Exactly.
Might have a shot at him, and there's others.
There's a couple of boys who can put the biscuit in the net coming down the stretch, no question about it.
Yes.
All right, let's move on. Thomas Construction Junior B's, easier said than done. They had a pretty good showing this year. Playoffs were ongoing for the past couple of weeks. Give us a wrap-up.
It was a best of 7 against Woodstock. Played well at home, one game there, come down, knocked them off 3-1, or 3-2, sorry, Jim. I don't know what our problem was. We go into Woodstock and we just couldn't score a goal, couldn't buy goals up there. The refereeing, it was 50-50, but you get into their rink, they get 500 and 600 fans a game up there, and I just don't know what our problem was to win in that rink. We went up there last year, played them last year in a best of 7 also, went down 4 straight. Just, I don't know what the problem was in that rink.
Okay, second year in the league. Do you, I mean, in your eyes, has this team improved? I mean, they've been knocked out in the first round both years, but have they improved from last year, or are they still on the same path and need something else to get over that hump?
Oh, no, we've improved quite a bit compared to last year. New coach this year, as you know, Merle Stewart, Ronnie Hatfield. Did a good job with the guys, the talents there. After this season, we lose 4 guys, Ricky Ward and a couple others due to age limits, but
sure.
If they're working on a couple of fellows right now out of St. Stephen, if we can get them for next year, it's going to be a good hockey club. We had a great club this year.
Sure.
But it's hard when you go into your rink and you look up and there's only 100 people in the stands.
Sure.
You know, what do you got to play for?
That's right. Well, the only complaint I have is not you boys not calling in the scores.
Manager's job there, Jimmy.
I thought you guys were like 15-0 there for a while. I didn't hear from you for weeks.
It would have been nice being 15-0. We'd be in the league final right now. That's what we have a team manager for.
I'm just kidding around with you. I'm
nope,
just taking a shot at you. Anyway, Bruce, high school hockey, of course, still going strong, and the playoffs are well underway, and a couple of good matchups and a couple of good tight games as well from the past week gone by. Give us a rundown on how everybody sits heading into, are there any games tonight due to the weather?
In our AA league, we've got Fundy High School leading Hampton High School in a surprise 2-0 right now. Game 3 goes, was supposed to be Sunday evening. Of course, the snow hit, so we don't know exactly when Game 3 goes at this point. The other series is St. Stephen leading St. Andrews 2-0 as well. Game 3 is Thursday evening in St. Stephen.
Okay. In
the AAA league, KV's all down. They were knocked out 3 straight by Oromocto, and Fredericton knocked off Edmonton 3 straight. So that's the final in the AAA league up there, which starts, I would believe, this Thursday evening as well.
Great.
Can I say one thing about the Junior B as well, please?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, the only thing I have to say about that team is they have to come up with a name for the team next year. St. John Thomas Construction is not a hockey team's name, in my opinion. Call them St. John Thomas Construction something else.
Cougars.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Give them a name. I really believe that's hurt their fan attendance this year. I think there's fans out there that think they're an industrial team of some sort. That's what it sounds like to me.
Playing in the Metro Gents League or something like that.
I believe that.
Yeah. AAA Midget Flames. I know you follow them quite, both of you boys follow them quite closely. How are they doing?
Well, they're down in their semifinals against Moncton. They're down 3-0. And as you know, Jim, they were scheduled to play last night to Beaverbrook. Snow put the hamper on that. So now they're going to go on Wednesday night at 7:30 at the Beaverbrook. And then as far as I know, they're going back to Moncton on Friday evening.
Okay.
So
yeah, they need a big win, definitely. I mean, those guys played, those 2 teams played in the final last year. I had the pleasure of being in Moncton when they did wrap things up and win the Atlantic Championship, and I mean, it was an outstanding game. But I mean, they've had to make shift to their lineups a few. Ivan Botor and Greg Leland had to toss things around. They lost their #1 goaltender. A couple of their forwards moved on, went to the Ontario Hockey League. So we wish them all the best, and it's going to be interesting to see how they do coming down the stretch here in Moncton, whether they can bounce back and get back on their blades. Anyway, that is the first half of our show. It's breezing right along, and we hope you don't go anywhere because we've got a lot more to talk about in the second half, so please stay right there.
Read between the lines on Imprint. Discover new authors and take a behind-the-cover look at some of the best-known literary works today. Imprint, Wednesday nights at 10:30 on Channel 10 TVNB.
Take me home. Fly like a man who will lay down beside me. I've got twins.
Maritime Country. Settle up for the ride. Monday night at 7 or Saturdays at 10 on TVNB.
Myself.
Tim Peel is the referee tonight. Chuck McTagg and Larry Magic Christian are the linesmen. Tyler Moss in goal for St. John. He is to our left. And it's Robert Esch for the Falcons. He is to our right. Brendan Convery to face it off against Travis Brigley. Back in the lineup after missing 2 games with a bad back. Convery's also battling back problems. Top of the circle. Down low. Saloui back in the right corner for Varlamov. Behind the net for Saloui. Bejans in front. Saloui trying to set it up from behind the Springfield goal. Left circle, Petrovicki. Point, shot, score! Eric Sharon with the shot from the point, and it's past Robert Esch, and the Flames have a power play goal and a 1-0 lead. Scoville from Merrimack. Right wing pass, Roach. Into the Springfield zone for Steve Bejans. Now Cowan scores! Jeff Cowan snapping a 12-game goalless drought with his 6th of the season, and the Flames have a 2-0 lead. Petrovicki gobbles it up in the neutral zone. He runs into Rob Murray. Now Greg Phillips comes in, and Petrovicki and Phillips, it appeared like they're going to drop the gloves. And now Josh Green appeared to be the 3rd man in as Petrovicki and Phillips try to scrap. And Petrovicki and Phillips both with their right arms free. Petrovicki comes over top with a right. Phillips has his right fist cocked. Petrovicki hanging on. And then Phillips came over top as the linesmen intervene. But Josh Green certainly got in the middle of those two. Shoots it into the attacking zone. Ellick nearly had it roll off of his stick behind the net, but he's able to regroup. Plays it for Brigley. He can't clear. Moving in is McCann. McCann in front. Green scores! Josh Green on the feed from Sean McCann gets the Falcons within 1 with all kinds of time left in this one. Now Sharon gloves it to Varlamov, who forces it out. Flames 2-on-1. Brigley with Saloui. Brigley on the left side for Saloui. Scores! Make it 10 points in 4 games for Martin Saloui. Some confusion in the neutral zone, and the Flames move in on a 2-on-1, and Saloui's goal, his 20th, restores St. John's 2-goal advantage. It's St. John 3, the Falcons 1.
Well, shades of last Sunday night, Travis Brigley and Martin St. Louis. Great job by Brigley of chipping the puck out past the Falcons defense, and what a pass.
And here's Saloui skating after it. Saloui looking for the open net. Saloui, he hit the side of the goal from a bad angle. It's not going to matter, though, because the Flames are going to hang on to win. 3-1 is the final.
And welcome back into the second half of time out here on TVNB. Jim Hennessy alongside Bob Allen and Bruce McDonald. We'll get right back to the conversation, guys. First, Barry Johnston was cruising the mean streets of the Port City over the past couple of days, and he had a chance to head down to Harbor Station to talk to the voice of the St. John Flames, Aaron Kennedy, and Chief Operating Officer of the St. John Flames, Stu McDonald, about the recent situation that we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks with the Fredericton Canadians leaving town at the end of the season. So we've got the comments from Mr. Kennedy and Mr. McDonald, and here's what they had to say.
What are your views with Fredericton leaving? Do you think was it a big shock? Was it something that was coming, or is it something that maybe the league should have looked at just to keep some teams here in Atlantic Canada?
Well, I don't think anyone who follows the American Hockey League at any level can be surprised that the Fredericton Canadians are leaving. It was a 9-year run.
And they've had some good times there, and certainly this season they have a team that might be able to go a ways in the Calder Cup playoffs. But the American Hockey League has simply outgrown small markets like Fredericton. You look now with a team like Philadelphia that had 19,000 plus fans for a game last weekend at the First Union Center, the home of the Philadelphia Flyers. Lexington, Kentucky, they have a 20,000 seat building. They're into a city like Cincinnati, Ohio. So small market cities like Fredericton, New Brunswick in Canada just simply really aren't part of the American Hockey League's mandate anymore. And going into Quebec City is great for the American Hockey League. No matter what they say, they have to be very happy that they're getting a 15,000 seat facility, a major league town that had the National Hockey League in the past. So now they're into Hartford and Philadelphia and Quebec City that have had and still have, in Philadelphia's case, NHL City. So I think they're pretty happy about the move, and that'll add to their average attendance. So from a league point of view, it's good. From a New Brunswick point of view, it's certainly not that good.
Having been brought up in the Fredericton area and having friends and family up there, what are their reactions? Are they surprised? Are they shocked? Or is it just one of those things where they're glad? Maybe some of them are glad to see the team go. Do they want another amateur team, maybe major junior, to come in there because it's a town where you have two universities where the money isn't all that great in there, and they're on top of the hill, and maybe they'll get more fans into that rink if they had something like major junior in there.
Well, I don't know how you could be happy to see the American Hockey League leave Fredericton. And I can understand in Moncton and in Halifax and Sydney where you lost an American Hockey League team and you wanted to go out and get a Quebec League team to have a tenant and to have a team in your city. But where you have the American Hockey League, to me, it seems rather silly to try and go for a team at a lower level. And there's talk in St. John that there perhaps is a faction out there that's trying to bring the Quebec Major Junior League to this city, and it just seems ridiculous if you're at this level why you'd like to drop to that level. And certainly the Quebec League is good hockey, but it's not the American Hockey League, and it's farther removed from the National Hockey League. You've got 70% of players in the NHL have played here, perhaps at Harbour Station, or at least in the American Hockey League. But I think people in Fredericton are disappointed. I know a lot of people that, you know, they like to make fun of the Canadians, and certainly the rivalry here from a St. John perspective, it was always a lot of fun, but there has to be some sort of melancholy feelings as the team leaves, because it's another nail in the coffin perhaps for the American Hockey League in Atlantic, Canada.
So obviously it's going to go back to the American side of the North American continent right now, but what about St. John's Maple Leafs? Is the city of St. John's making a big mistake building a new arena there? Is the possibility that they're going to move out of there now because of the fact that it's going to cost them a lot more for travel?
Well, it's interesting because the Leafs have always had expensive travel. They don't have any bus trips. Everywhere they go, they have to fly off of the Rock, and be it if they fly to Boston and then go on the bus to travel to places like Portland and Springfield and Providence, and there's a lot of cities that are condensed when you get down there. And I think from a league perspective, if they can get 5,000 or 6,000 fans per game over there in that new facility, and from what we hear, there's no reason why they can't, they'd be happy with it. St. John's is a city that a lot of teams like to go to. They're only over there for a weekend, and it's a good place to be. It's exciting over there. The fans love their hockey, and they're knowledgeable. But I think it's going to be difficult for the other teams. St. John is a good example that all of a sudden next season your closest geographical rival is, I don't know how fast you can drive, but I'd say it's a good 6.5 to 7 hours to Quebec City, 5 hours to Portland, and then 6.5 to Lowell, so you're a long ways removed. But it's going to be a challenge for people to try and keep the American Hockey League viable in this city long term. And the downside about all this is that a number of years ago the American Hockey League was literally controlled by Atlantic Canada, because they had 5 or 6 teams. They'd go down to their American Hockey League board meetings and they could just block anything that they didn't like. They were known as the Canadian cartel. They just vote together, and we're just not going to do that, and there's no way you can do anything about it because they need 2/3 votes to pass something. And at this point in time, this area was able to block those types of moves, and that's certainly not the case now.
So from a marketing point of view, would you have to go into Fredericton now and do some heavy marketing possibly to get for some Fredericton fans to come down here, or are we just going to kind of see how it goes and as a touchy-feely type of process and see how things are going to go from there?
Yeah, I think right now we're, I think we're a little sensitive to the decision. We're as disappointed as the fans in Fredericton are. It's been a great rivalry for our organization and a big part of the success we've had here because we've had the team so close. And I think we'll take a look down the road. We'll talk to the Canadians organization. We'll talk to some of their fans to get a feel for maybe what's appropriate after the season's concluded. We definitely won't be doing anything prior to that out of respect for the balance of the season there.
St. John had an ideal situation with the Pedway system, the Delta there for teams coming in and staying. Do you think now that they're going to maybe just come in and out, fly into St. John and back out again to go to wherever they may have to go to the Rock or go to Hamilton or Providence or wherever the case may be, is St. John going to lose out financially on this?
I really don't think so at this point, and we've already been talking to the American Hockey League on how this potentially can affect scheduling for next year. But teams like basing out of here, and they'll come in early, even if they're playing in Portland a couple days early. They like to get up here because of the setup with the pedway system, with the arena. They can get ice in the building. It's great ice here in Harbour Station, and in the middle of winter or fall or spring, for that matter, the guys can pretty much do what they want indoors or with a short walk to get to anything they want to in our city in the uptown area. And so I think you'll still see a lot of teams making their travel arrangements if they've got that extra day that they're going to be on the road anyway to try to get into St. John to base out of here. And you'll probably see, some teams, you look at the weeks where we go through, and on March break where we have Rochester and Springfield both playing a couple games in here and going back and forth between St. John and Fredericton. I think you'll probably still see a little bit of that down the road as well, where maybe that one team will come in and they'll play a game here, spend a couple days, go over to St. John's to play a couple, come back for a couple more to play the Flames here again. So I think, I would hope that it's going to even out. There's not a lot of times where a team will come in and base for a 1 week period. That's pretty unusual, and they've got to be playing 3 or 4 games between us and Fredericton. So I don't think that we're going to lose out a lot. And I guess the other is basically now you can look at it from a positive standpoint and say, when Quebec comes in, they're probably going to be staying overnight, and we didn't have that luxury with Fredericton. So when it's all said and done, I would hope things would balance out and maybe be even a little bit more beneficial to the city.
You talked about scheduling and talking to the league. Is there a possibility now we're going to see the St. John Flames on longer road trips now? If they go to Quebec, they're going to go to Hamilton, Rochester, Adirondack, maybe Syracuse, and those areas. Are we going to see like the 12, 13-day road trips and play 5 or 6 games in amongst that time frame?
I don't think that's necessarily so. I guess if that's something we as a hockey club thought was an advantage to us, both from a ticket sales standpoint at home and a travel standpoint on the road, it's something we'd look at. But really what you're doing is taking 6 games out from a team that travels an hour to play us and playing 5 or 6 games with a team that's got to travel 6 or 7 hours to play us. The balance of schedule really isn't affected. And what we might do is maybe rather than playing when we're going on that 2-game road trip down to Portland and Lowell, we use Portland as a jump-off point for there. Maybe we do the same thing with Quebec, where we play Quebec and go into, for that matter, I think they're only about 5 hours from Portland. You might swing back down that way and do a little bit of a triangle coming back up. So part of it will be a little bit see where the league continues to develop. Is there a Montreal market down the road for the American Hockey League? And if there is, then that ties in. There's talk about even Ottawa, down the road. There's rumors out of there that they might even consider looking at it for their American League affiliate if Quebec didn't work out. So I think that, from a fan standpoint, our priority is to make sure that as we look at it from a home game standpoint, to make sure we've got enough variety and it's spread and as many Friday and Saturday nights as we can over the course of the season. And from a road perspective, to make sure the travel is, I guess, as tight as possibly as we can get it to an ideal situation just from a competitive nature when we're on the road. I mean, there's times when you like to be out on a 10, 12-day road trip. There's other times in the season where you don't, and you try to work that around as you're doing your scheduling. But I don't see a dramatic change from where we've been in the past.
Thank you very much to Barry for doing that interview work, and thank you to Mr. Kennedy and to Mr. McDonald as well. Of course, we've talked about Fredericton leaving town at the end of the season, which is a sad thing for if you're a hockey fan, and definitely if you're an AHL hockey fan. This seems to be the pattern going on with the teams or the NHL teams wanting to move their affiliates a little closer to home and to a bigger arena, trying to make some more money. So I guess we'll have to wait and see how it all pans out. But all the I's have been dotted and the T's have been crossed, so it looks like they are going to be playing out of Le Colisée. Let's talk about, speaking of La Belle Province, let's switch over to the baseball diamond. I know it's hard to think about baseball with 40 centimeters of snow on the ground, but earlier this week, a survey was done from baseball fans in and around the area, and most of them, I think it was something around the number, about 85%, said they will not go to see a Montreal Expos game simply for the fact, not that they don't like the team, they're worried about the Olympic Stadium, the roof crashing in. It's an unstable building. I think it was a couple of months ago when a car show was getting ready to set up in there, a huge chunk of the dome fell through and almost killed a couple of people. So I mean, you can see their point where they don't want to play, but I mean, this gets back to the saga where the Expos keep trying and trying to get over this hurdle, but they just keep hitting this roadblock. Bruce, I know you're a big fan of the team, so what do you think about this?
Well, I think if that survey had been done 15 years ago, 90% of them wouldn't have gone to the Big L before anything fell. I just don't think the fans up there wanted to watch ball, and that, for starters, in that part of the city, takes you forever to get out there, and it's not the best part of Montreal to begin with. you're in a big, as Steve Carlton said of the Phillies, a big wine cooler. when you're playing there, that's the impression you get. You get that enclosed roof, and you're in there.
It's like a tank.
It's like a sauna in the summer when it's hot, and it's cold in the spring, and it's like I say, you put 25,000 people in there, and there's still no atmosphere, really.
No.
I mean, you need a full house of 40 to get anything. You're not going to get that every night for a ball game anyhow, I don't think.
Big time.
So I think if they get the new stadium built downtown, I saw pictures of it on the internet. It's
Beautiful facility.
Beautiful and a great spot downtown. If it does happen, and I hope it does, I really do, baseball can survive in Montreal. But
no question.
obviously they need to get that done.
Well, let's make a road trip out of it if they do. Bob, what do you think about this whole situation?
Yeah, what I've been reading and following it, they do need this new dome. Like Bruce said, it's too far out of the way. Like usually when we go, we stay downtown, and it's out in the slums of Montreal, and they've got to get, like how they're looking at the new Molson Center.
Sure.
That's a good setup. They need something like that, and like Bruce said, they need the 40 or 50,000 people to come out, because we've been there, and 15,000 people aren't going to run a ball team when you can walk
not
up.
in the Big O anyway.
No, not when you can walk up on game day and get tickets behind the dugout.
Yeah.
You just shouldn't be able to do that in any stadium.
Yeah,
certainly.
And on top of that, the scalpers can't make a living that way either, can they? But Bob, the new stadium doesn't have a dome on it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that thing there is like a tank, yeah.
Anyway, still with baseball, a sad note comes out of the world of baseball from earlier this morning. Joltin' Joe, baseball, one of the all-time greats, Joe DiMaggio, the Yankee Clipper, passes away at the age of 84, going through a long battle with cancer, had pneumonia, went into a coma, didn't seem to want to, they didn't think he was going to come out of that, but he did, and unfortunately he was going to throw the first baseball out when the Yankees opened the season at Yankee Stadium, but not around to do that, but he'll certainly be missed, and he made a huge impact. As Simon and Garfunkel said in their ditty, "Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio?" And nation turns its lonely eyes to you. You guys are supposed to do the backup there. Boo-hoo-hoo.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, that's about it for the show this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. Bob, Bruce, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, and we appreciate you tuning in as well. And we'll talk to you again next Monday night at 6 o'clock for Time Out right here on TVNB. Have a good week.